as we continue this remarkable exchange of ideas, the very heartbeat of the TEDx experience. We now invite a speaker whose perspective promises to inspire reflection and ignite meaningful thought. It is with great pleasure that we welcome Shiv MANDLIK to the TEDx stage. Shiv, the stage is yours.
In the Indian business families, we have a sacred object called the Lal Bahi Khata or the Red Ledger. We use it to maintain what we call the Udhar Ka Hisab, the strict accounting of what is being owed. Anything written in this book is never forgotten. Every single debt, every single paisa, every single transaction is meticulously recorded until the ledger is balanced. We are a community, we are a culture obsessed with accounting our own wealth and status. But in 1956, my family inherited a debt that no one wrote down. A construction worker climbed a mundane utility pole, and this worker was none other than my own great-grandfather. Well, he was not a daredevil himself. He was just a mundane worker trying to earn a living for himself and his family by the only means he knew how. At height, with bare hands, with no fail-safe between his head and the concrete, and he slipped. 20 feet, folks. It takes exactly 1.2 seconds to fall that height, and he died. But in my family, this story is never shared as a tragedy, it's always told as a fact. The way things happen, the way monsoons happen, the way power cuts happen, and the way, in India, things just happen. And honestly, I accepted that framing until one afternoon back in 2024, I saw a worker meet the exact same fate as my own great-grandfather. A worker, a scaffold, a slip, and the exact same fall, and the exact same height, and the exact same absence of any structure to catch him. And I stood there and I thought to myself, 68 years. My great-grandfather fell in 1956 and this man fell in 2024. 68 years, we've managed to put supercomputers in our pocket. We've managed to send spacecraft and rovers to the dark side of the moon and do other hard things. But we have not managed to put a simple auto-locking mechanism on a construction utility pole. Ironical, isn't it? And that was the moment I stopped accepting this framing. Hi everyone, I'm Shiv, and today I want to talk to you about the blood in our blueprints and the ledger, the khata of the invisible. 11,614. That's the minimum estimate of the construction workers who die every single year in India. Falls, collapses, structural failures, every single year. India's worst natural disaster was the Kerala flood that killed approximately 483 people. The Prime Minister flew in, world sent aid, and the entire nation mourned. But 11,614 is 24 Kerala floods, and still no one flies, no one sends aid, and this happens every single year. Why? Because these deaths happen one at a time. One shattered spine on a Tuesday morning that no one would ever care to talk about. As I often say that we live in an era of hyper visibility. So say if you order a 150 rupees coffee from Swiggy right now, the satellite somewhere in space will track it to your doorstep in real time. But if a worker falls off 30 feet from the very apartment complex that you live in, no one will ever talk about it. And he vanishes into thin air. He vanishes into our own national conscience because the NCRB does not have a separate category for construction fatalities. They scatter these deaths across various vague categories. Isn't it ironical that we have engineered a society where a misplaced pizza box can trigger a corporate alert, but a dead laborer cannot? My great-grandfather's death was not an accident, it was a design failure, and that is why I was determined to redesign the system altogether. I did not want to write a research paper. I wanted to build a weapon against this apathy that exists in our society. This is the modular arm pole. I designed it inside a precision gear and pulley mechanism with an auto-locking mechanical brake that brings the light fixture to the ground level so that no worker has to ever climb again for a simple construction utility pole. The first time I watched a worker fix a light fixture on a ground level, I cried. I thought about my own great-grandfather and I wondered that I fixed a wound that existed in my family even before the time I was born. But a pole is just one structure. What about buildings? Well, a lot of people say that engineering safety into building is way too expensive, and I did not believe them. And that is exactly why I ran a genetic artificial intelligence algorithm across 50 different generations. And out of thousands of different configurations, it converged to an angle of 36.9 degrees. Now that is the angle where the structure, instead of collapsing, buckles progressively. It acts like a crumple zone inside a car, absorbing impact instead of transferring it to the human spine. Safety factor 18.9x, 243% better in terms of strength to weight ratio, 60% lighter and commercially viable. I pitched it to the government of India, received patent for the same, took it to the Indian National Science and Engineering Fair and secured first position out of 2200 entries nationally qualified for Team India at Genius Olympiad. But why am I sharing this with you? Because I feel to a certain extent that medals are an indictment of our own society. Because if a 17 years old or a 18 years old could engineer a non-fatal structure right from his bedroom with a normal computer, the real question is, what is a $1 billion real estate developer's excuse? Well, the answer is again very simple. We humans have this tendency of prioritizing charity over change, and in my early days, I was one of those individuals. I used to distribute personal protective equipment, helmets, gears, safety shoes, vest, and I felt like a savior until one afternoon I saw a worker climb a scaffold wearing the same helmet I handed him 5 minutes back. And that is when I thought to myself that a helmet might be able to protect one skull at a time, but what about the entire rigged system that put the skull at risk on the first place? And because charity is very dangerous, it whitewashes the structural failures that exist in our society. Charity just makes us feel good while keeping the already broken system more and more broken. So that is when I decided to stop handing out these helmets and I built Samrakshak, India's first construction safety operating system. Real-time fall detection using accelerometer algorithm. When a sensor detects a fall, the exact geolocation, instant contractor alert, and immediate ambulance dispatch occurs. Result, emergency time dropped by 80%. 120 lives saved. 120 people who went home to their families and had dinner just because of a piece of code I wrote refused to let them die in dark. When I looked deeper into the construction sites, I found out that women had zero sanitation facilities. We anticipated that too. The adoption rate rose from 9% to 86%, and the absenteeism dropped to 31%. And it is only now that I realized that these women never required a charity. What they required was dignity, and dignity, again, is, my friends, infrastructure problem. So people often ask me this question that, Shiv, why are you so obsessed with construction workers? And I often tell them that I'm not. I am obsessed with literally anything and everything that the system chooses to make invisible. Last year, I trained this artificial intelligence model that can to identify 37 different species from unlabeled camera trap images. The model taught itself to identify species in pitch dark using visual patterns, 95.13% accuracy, published in a global journal. I also co-authored a paper on geothermal desalination integrated with solar and geothermal energy to reduce the cost upfront by 30%. Again, why am I sharing this with you? Because artificial intelligence can spot an endangered cat in pitch dark, and satellite somewhere in space can map the groundwater thousands of feet below the Earth's crust. So when a society values a problem clearly enough, we have the capability to engineer absolute miracles to count them. But when a human being in a hard hat falls off 30 feet from a skyscraper, the system suddenly goes blind. So whether it's endangered cats or it's groundwater or it's the construction workers, every single time it is the exact same architecture. We have the technology to see everything and dissect each and every problem in detail, but we intentionally just aim it away from the poor. This is again not a technological gap or a technological disparity. This is an empathy deficit, and this is exactly why I walked into a room full of government officials and top officers from national as well as multinational companies who are into the field of construction to pitch my draft of the Construction Safety Amendment Bill 2026. Now, let's just take a step back and talk about the Lal Bahi Kitab, the Red Ledger, and the Udhar Ka Hisab. India, for over generations now, has built glittering skylines, its massive highways, and its trillion-dollar economy on an unpaid debt. A debt owed to the workers who poured the concrete. 11,614 deaths a year is not just a statistic, but it's a ledger of unpaid blood. Every one of those deaths had a name, a story, a family, hands that build the system that we consume every single day. Look at the walls of this auditorium and the ceiling above your head and think about the road you took to drive to this seat right now. We are literally sitting inside their debt. We are living inside the work of their hands. I've spent last 3 years building algorithms, drafting policy papers, publishing research papers, getting patents to lodge their name into the ledger, the khata, but technology is again just a tool. The real change starts right here. The era of invisible blood is now over. The question I'll leave you with today is not, do we have the technology to anticipate these problems? Of course, we do. The real question is much more simpler, it's much more mundane, and yet it's much more harder. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up and you look at a skyline being built, what is it exactly that you are going to refuse to unsee? Thank you.